Today is the first ever episode from our very exciting How to Be a Scientist series. So, I'll just lay out a brief plan of our what we are going to do throughout the course of these series. What we're going to do is start with interviewing scientists, and we are going to request our guests to talk about their research, tell us how they are changing the world every day, one experiment at a time. And we are also going to talk about the not so glorifying part about research. We are going to talk about the challenges. And we are also going to talk about the most rewarding part. And the idea of our entire exercise is to inspire young scientists. And another major motive of our channel is to inspire young girls, more and more young girls across the world, to take up careers in STEM. We want to bring forward scientists who have established themselves. We want to bring forward scientists from all classes of academia, including PhD students, undergrad students, research assistants, and group leaders, and request them to talk to us about their journey and also teach us how to be a scientist. And today we have with us Srushti Kasare.
Yes, so firstly, I'd like to welcome Srushti Kasare, who is a PhD scholar and who also works in a clinical environment, especially focusing on preterm babies. So, I'd like to introduce what are preterm babies. So, generally, the gestation period is from 37 weeks to 41 weeks of pregnancy, but the babies that are born before 37 or 35 weeks of pregnancy are called preterm babies. So when they're born, they are kept in a neonatal intensive care unit, which is also called NICU, and where they have to be looked after until they reach a certain stage of their life, and when they're happy and healthy to go outside the NICU to live their rest of their lives. But the problem is, it's not just that they are susceptible to infections or diseases while they are in that preterm phase. They can also develop different types of diseases throughout their lives. Some diseases that can just stay with them for their entire life. For example, short gut, sepsis, and many other diseases. But I'd like to ask Shrishti, who works in that environment, to tell us more about preterm babies and what are the challenges that preterm babies face throughout their lives.
First of all, thank you very much for this very grateful opportunity to talk about my research and my work. So yes, as you mentioned, we are going to talk about preterm birth. So first of all, we are sitting in Australia, so I'll give you some stats. So here in Australia, 1 in 10 infants are born preterm, whereas in other countries, this is a lot higher rate. So what does that mean? So the more impactful meaning would be like in the world, around 1 million infants die each year, and the main cause is just because they're born preterm. And this is not going to change anymore because we have seen in the increasing trend of preterm births throughout the world, even in lower income countries as well as higher income countries. So yes, they are born preterm, as mentioned earlier, in 37 weeks. So what happens? Yes, they are kept in the NICU, which is like a box. Why are they kept in the NICU? Is mainly because we want to prevent a lot of exposure to the external environment, which is full of organisms. So even in hospital settings, even though everything is very clean and neat, they are still exposed to a lot of the hospital environment where there's bacteria that can also cause a lot of infection. So why we're protecting them against infection? Because as mentioned before, preterm babies are born early, which means they have a lot of challenges to go through. They have underdeveloped skin, then they have underdeveloped organs such as lungs, and they have underdeveloped other areas of protection, which is the main one, is our immune system. So as we have probably learned through COVID, that our immune system is the one that really saves us from all these challenges. For preterm babies, definitely they have an underdeveloped immune system. So as Dhanvi mentioned, sepsis. So now sepsis is the thing where there are some bacteria that escape the protection layers of the babies and they go inside the blood. So when they go into the blood, they can cause a lot of immune reaction because the body is trying to fight against these bacteria and other pathogens. But because of the immature immune cells, they cannot really clear this infection and hence causes a lot of problems for recovering from an infection. During that time, what happens is doctors, they prescribe these babies with medications such as antibiotics. some babies will have to stay on antibiotics for a very, very long time. And as we have all heard, like currently antibiotic use is kind of dangerous because it leads to a lot of resistance to antibiotics, and hence in the future we're all trying to reduce the use of antibiotics, specifically in adults so that we can reduce resistance to antibiotics, but also in these very preterm babies. We want to reduce to the use of antibiotics.
So, yeah, that's very exciting to know that this is such an important area of research and that there are so many babies globally that are affected. And from the moment they are born, these tiny babies have to be taken to the surgical unit and have a portion of their gut removed or have serious surgeries performed on them. And they live with these complications for the rest of their life. So, research in this area is so important so that we can not only early diagnose this disease, prevent them and also treat them in a more efficient manner. But we know that so much of research is happening on so many different aspects, and like it should, like on cancer, like on therapies, like on autoimmune diseases. But this is so important and quite unique in its nature. So I think my question to you would be, what motivated you to take up this field of research?
So definitely my background research was in a completely different area. It was in studying about kidneys. But again, I was studying immune cells. So then when I moved to this new group, or I was just networking and I was introduced to the new team, was the first time I even heard about sepsis or learned more about preterm infants. So yes, as and then I was meeting this group and learning more about the impact this has and the areas that are so unresearched, that sort of motivated me so that I could, take on this challenge and see where I can go further and see what impact I can create in this research field, the research field of neonatal health. So again, this very interesting thing is to just find your interests early on and make sure you're highly motivated to do this. Because it is a long way to go when you keep doing more and more research. It becomes this motivation drives you every day to day. So yeah.
Yes. And I think when you talk to different scientists in your everyday life, you understand that where are the gaps in the studies and where we need to focus more. Because from outside perspective, we feel that, oh, there are just these big diseases like diabetes, cancer, and mental health issues. But these little issues are neglected by everyone, I feel. And also, I'd like to ask you, what are the challenges actually you face to research in these teams? Because you're working with preterm, they're very fragile, so it'd be really hard to like get their samples or to study on them. And also, what will be the bigger impact on the society once you finish your research in longer term?
So in the research field, of course, when we are doing a study, we need to again collect some blood samples. So these blood samples, because they are belonging to a human being, which means it's a preterm baby, so then I cannot ask the preterm baby for consent, right? Yeah. So I have to conduct this through talking to the parents, collecting consents. And it's just a waiting game again, because we do need to wait until the time of infection so that we can again see if we can collect a sample. And yes, sometimes we just can't collect a sample because the baby is very, very ill or there's just not enough blood. So which means we just have to keep trying until we reach the target of the sufficient level of samples required to do an analysis of the data. So
I think so. There are two aspects to the challenges that you're talking about. That the first one being the technical challenge, just in the volume of sample that you can collect. Because from what I understand, the babies born so small would have just about 500 ml blood in them, and it's just cruel to ask the parents to consent to even draw 1 ml of blood. And that is the technical aspect. And I think the social aspect is that babies can't advocate for themselves, babies can't consent for themselves. So that is a different layer of challenge in your research. But although there are challenges, what do you think is what keeps you going? That is, what is the most rewarding part of your research?
well, the most rewarding part is because I'm so closely linked with the actual research team and the doctors. When I do discuss my results, they do understand, what these results could have an impact in the real world, or just bit by bit of how closer I'm getting to really like solving this mysterious puzzle of why do preterm babies have such a high rate of infection. We still don't know. So these small steps that are getting us closer as a collective team effort is what keeps me motivated and rewarding me every day to keep contributing to the team's effort.
Also, what do you think? How far are we from finding a solution for this problem? I know it is quite hard to find a solution, but at least we can try and prevent as much as we can, because worldwide preterm deaths are quite common, especially in the countries that are not yet developed.
Technology is racing at the speed, I don't know what,
Yes.
but we definitely are getting a lot more information in the sense of just pure information. There's also a lot of data-driven techniques coming out, which are helping us to reflect back on some older results and see them in a different lens. So again, our search is on, and we do have the benefit of modern technology, but if you're looking at the lower income countries, there are still a lot of advocacies to generate very simple, very straightforward, step-by-step things that can be implemented easily. I recently attended a very good conference, and the person really explained how these steps are aligning with the global impact of reducing improving health outcomes in this age group. So there is work happening in all places. So we are seeing changes. There's other research projects which I'm not directly involved with, but we are testing out new techniques. We are testing out new drugs. But of course, if we want to have a direct answer to some of our bigger problems, like we still are a few, maybe a decade away, but I hope we get there soon.
I think one very important takeaway is that not all difficult questions have difficult answers. But yeah, I think now we have arrived at the most exciting part of this episode, where we are going to ask Srishti the question of the day, which is what is her mantra and what is her answer to how to be a scientist?
This is a big question, by the way. It's not like a straightforward, you do this, you can be a scientist. No. It's a journey. So it's a journey of exploring yourself, first of all. You yourself have to find what tickles your curiosity, and then you will have to find yourself what motivates you. So, and again, you have to find yourself the strength to really go through the process, the ups and downs of a lot of challenges that we face through. But eventually, it's all about finding, within yourself whether you have the skills to really keep this going. And yeah, my mantra would be very clear of what is it that you want in your future. And yes, if anybody has the skills to go through a few lab demonstration, and you could do that, and then if you can go through managing a project, we pretty sure that you can still become a scientist. So associated with labs and constantly being in the labs all the time. So yeah, if you're ready for that, you're up for being a scientist.
These intentions.
Yes.
You're working in the field, which is exciting, but at the same time, it's quite heartbreaking as well when you see little babies suffering. And it's very important to find some solution for that and not make them suffer throughout their life, because it's not just that period. I would like to thank our today's guest, Srushti, who has shared such an inspiring journey of her how to be a scientist, and also shed some light on the research that she's doing, which is apparently, she said, we're going to find solutions soon. So thanks very much, Srushti, for sharing such a beautiful story of yours.
Thank you, guys. It's my pleasure.
And to everyone watching, this How to Be a Scientist series is something very close to our heart, and we are going to try and reach out to as many scientists as we can, and from as many diverse backgrounds that we can, from different levels in academia, different levels of experience, and different levels of research backgrounds. And we're going to ask them all this question in the end about their mantra on how to be a scientist. And of course, we are going to find out all about the really, really cool research that they have been carrying on. So stay tuned to that channel, and we are looking forward to also feedback on what questions our audience wants us to address in the next videos.
Please drop your comments and what do you want, what are the topics that you want to learn from us.